First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional officer.
Good morning or good evening, depending on whatever shift your seniority allows you to hold. I'm William Young, and I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, man, Will looks like hell today. Will looks like he just got out of bed 20 minutes ago, stumbled to his car, and started filming a video. And you know what? You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. But the good news is that it's my Friday, right? So when I got off of work today, I got off of work on time. I don't have to go back tonight. So that 2-hour nap that I had today that usually has to sustain me, that usually has to carry me over for another 24 to 26 hours, I don't have to do that tonight. Tonight, I get to go to bed like a normal person. So I'm super excited. So the question is, what do I think that the biggest challenge for correctional professionals is currently, right now, 2019, rolling into 2020 here in the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks? And for me, I think there are several things that we deal with that give us hell, right? That give us some amount of grief. But right now, if I had to come up with something really quick, if I was playing Family Feud and I was right there at the buzzer and I had to hit and I had to throw something out there, it would be staffing. Survey says, no matter what the survey says, because this is my video clip, I feel like the biggest issue for correctional officers, for corrections personnel in general, is staffing. There are not enough people working in our facilities to adequately staff them, right? I mean, we're not going under, we're not closing our doors, but staff and officers are working insane amounts of mandatory overtime. So what does that do? Well, take an officer and see what their performance is like when they know when they're going to go home, right? When they know that they're only going to have to work their shift, their 8 hours, their 12 hours, whatever it is. Look at the performance. Look at the engagement. Look at the attitude of that individual. And then compare that to that same individual when they're forced to work a mandatory double shift, or when they come to work and they don't know if they're going to be able to get to their son or their daughter's tuba lesson or musical program or volleyball practice. I'm guessing that their attitude's going to be a little bit different. Mine is when I go to work and I don't know when I'm going home, my anxiety is through the roof. And so if I have an issue or a problem that I need to solve, I've always got this thing in the back of my head, right? This, am I going home? Right? And it's almost like you have to pace yourself. If you had to run a short amount of distance, right, you would expel a little bit more energy than, say, you were going to run with Big Russ Hamilton, the half marathon that he does every morning before I even think about rolling out of bed, right? You'd conserve a little bit of that energy. But it's not just about overtime, right? It's about if we can't get enough people to staff, when we do bring people in and they realize that they got to work over and over and over again, and areas of the facility are shut down and we're shuffling resources, we have non-custody staff forced into these custody positions, well, they're going to leave, right? Because you can't force anybody to work in a correctional facility. So staffing has a lot to do with officer morale, right? With officer performance and officer retention, right? We're not going to be able to keep anybody. And then take for example, for me, I have a hard time recommending corrections to anybody I know that's looking to get into a solid, honorable career field, or that has any kind of desire to work in law enforcement in any capacity, because I'm not going to lie to them. I'm going to tell them what's going on. And most of them, if you know me, most of you know that I haven't been at a dinner party in months. Part of that is because I don't want to go, because I'm self-isolating, right? Because if I went to those dinner parties, I wouldn't be able to write those articles about how I don't go to those dinner parties. That's why I don't go, I got to keep my edge, right? No, the fact of the matter is I'm working all of the time. These officers are working all of the time, and they don't have not only the time, but the energy when they're off to participate in normal life activities. So my buddies who see me work all the time and therefore never see me, they don't want anything to do with corrections. They know that it's crazy. So for me, staffing is huge. And I haven't read one article anywhere where an officer or an administrator has come out and said, hey, look at our facility. We're the model facility. We have officers crawling over the top of each other, right? We have zero morale issues, and they're beating down the door to come work for us. I haven't read that article. If you have, or if your facility is like that, then leave it in the comments. Let us know, right? Maybe if you're hiring, some of us will want to go there. Nah, I'm not going anywhere. But you see what I'm saying? What you usually read is staffing crisis. Officers are burnt out. Officers don't know when they're going home. Facilities are bringing in the National Guard to help them staff. They're using civilian staff to run perimeter patrols and yard duty and stuff like that. That's a dangerous situation. Excuse me. Let me get a drink. Thank you. Remember, I did just roll out of bed. We can figure out a way to adequately staff our facilities, and I don't know if it needs to be a marketing platform, if we need to start doing every job fair at every community college everywhere, if we need to widen our net. I don't know what the answer is. I've seen some people that are in Florida. I think they're hiring people with criminal records, misdemeanors and stuff. Some people are lowering the age limit. Some people are lowering testing requirements and different things like that. They're really trying to get creative to get people in the door. The problem is, though, when you bring staff in that isn't ready for the profession, which I don't think any of us were when we started, and they're not given the skills to be successful, then they don't stay. And you're constantly burning out the same people over and over and over again. And that's why nobody's staffed. Right? We're not all going to work in the fracking fields. Does anybody even frack anymore? I don't know. But that was a big deal in Wyoming, 10 years ago when it came out. Right? And in our place, locally, people aren't going to stay and have to work overtime every single night. They'll go take a little pay cut and they'll go work for the power company, or they'll go, guard a subway or something. That's where we're at right now. Okay. Let me know what you think. I'm curious to see if I'm way off base here or if you agree with me. So I appreciate your time. And until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon. Sun, woo! Sun's out, guns out, baby. Good morning or good evening, depending on whatever shift your seniority allows you to hold. I'm William Young. My answer to the question, what I feel the greatest challenge that is going to present itself over the next 10 years, the next decade in corrections, is something that we've been slowly dealing with over the last few years, and that is the change in the perception of our clientele, of our inmate population, right? The way that we're viewing these people and the how you doing? And the attitude, sorry, this guy's pulling up, and the attitude that we have towards behavioral issues and just the philosophy of corrections in general, right? We're getting away from just locking people up and throwing away the key, right? And we're moving into rehabilitation mindset, reintegration mindset, right? Programming. Okay. Now, as a guy who works in community corrections, I understand some of that philosophy. I've been dealing with this, living in this world for a long time now, and I have seen some of the benefits of this. But it's not what we were trained to do. When I started 15 years ago, they didn't tell me that I would have to be aware of different mental health diagnoses, right? They didn't talk about progressive discipline, right? They taught us how to not be manipulated by an inmate. They taught us how to defend ourselves physically from an attack, but they drew this clear-cut line that these are inmates and this is what and how we handle inmates. But today it's not like that. And the future of corrections, if I had a crystal ball, and I don't, all I have, the best thing that I have is my water bottle here, but if I was to have a crystal ball and I was to look into that crystal ball to see what the future of corrections would be, we're introducing different programming, alcohol and drug counseling classes. We're having special housing units just for veterans. We're bringing in gardens and therapeutic plants and pets, and we're looking at these behavioral issues a lot differently, right? And I don't disagree with it. I love the changes. I love the direction. I'm trying to be more of a positive outlook kind of guy, a utopian type. I believe that the majority of human life is salvageable, right? And for a guy who works at a jail versus a prison, my population rotates quite a bit. These people get out and they get out into society and they're out working and living amongst us, right? So I have some stake in how they man, that person's flying. I gotta find a safer street to shoot my videos on. Jeez Louise. Anyways, I have a little bit of stake of how they come out. I want them to come out of my correctional facility a better person, right? Because when I go to Walmart during the week, not on the weekends, but when I go to Walmart, they're there. When I go to a restaurant, they're cooking my food. My kids go to school with their kids, right? The communities are not that big. And so I want them to be better people. I want them to understand the value of participating in your community and taking pride in your community, right? I want them to be off of drugs. I want them to be off of alcohol, right? I want them to be avid cornhole players, the beanbag toss game when they get out of jail. Because I think that will have a direct effect on society itself. So the problem comes in, though, is because us salty, old, gray-haired, angry, veteran correctional officers weren't trained to deal with inmates like that, right? And now, sometimes we're not even calling them inmates anymore. We're calling them clients or offenders, or we're getting caught up in these things. And the way that we dealt with situations when we started are not the way they're allowing us to deal with them now. And that causes a lot of frustration because the level of training that we're getting has not changed. They're bringing in some things, right? They're bringing in crisis intervention training and mental health first aid and those kind of things, and they're really helpful, but the majority of staff are not getting those training classes, right? Because they're bringing in mental health people or reentry people or these specialists, and that's great. But when you're stuck in a housing unit, when you're locked in the room with these people and you're watching these things, you have to be able to react to them. You have to understand what a panic attack looks like and how you can respond to that, right? If you didn't know what a panic attack was and you saw one, you might think the person's shutting down, being passive aggressive, passive resistance. They're not listening to your commands. You may cause a use of force situation just because you think that person's being defiant. When in reality, a panic attack is very debilitating. They can't do anything but sit there and shake and just try to keep themselves calm. But I had to go through extra training to actually understand that. If you would have talked to me 5 years ago, I would have told you that you were crazy, that those kind of things didn't really exist, that they were doing them for sympathy. But that's not the truth. And I think that's where a lot of that frustration comes in, because we have a lack of understanding of the big picture, right? The mission, the kind of the shift in philosophy. And so for me, that's going to be the biggest challenge moving forward as your veteran staff kind of goes on and you have some of that old school mentality left. And so I think a good way to kind of mitigate that is to have better training for the officers coming in, even if they have to go get some of that training on their own. But you watch what corrections looks like in the next 10 to 15 years, and it's going to be community-based programming, reentry, reintegration, which I'm all in. I'm all for it. I love it. I really do. I don't think locking people up and throwing away the key helps the majority of people. Some people deserve to be there, absolutely. Some people don't, though. All right, I hope that helps. Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.